its intricacies and workings. We don't want to go into fine detail, but there's a couple of YouTube videos out there, and we'll make the links available on the fractional banking system and how the banking system actually works and why the United States is so in debt. And what's really interesting is that it's something that bankers have been using for years and creditors use for years, and yet there's a simple remedy that's legal, and that's why they're willing to do it. So tell me a little bit about when people are sitting down with their creditors and negotiate. Obviously there's, you can do it yourself, which I did, but it was very turmoil for me, up and down, and I remember I used to get calls from the creditors, and you always want to make sure you talk to them, but I remember telling them, they'd say, "Is Roger there?" And I'd say, "Well, no, he just went on a tour. He's trying to get some money so he can pay you guys." And it was me on the phone, and I had my car hidden in the garage because I didn't want them to come and repossess it. And I mean, I was always friendly with them. I remember one time I told this creditor, I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'm selling these health products, and if you'll buy my weight loss products, I'll make some money. I can pay you guys back." And he laughed, of course, and actually that particular company stopped calling me because they realized they couldn't use fear and worry to manipulate me to do things, which is what, let's talk about that. I mean, some of these guys use some tactics that are pretty hefty.
Right, and there are federal laws to prevent them from doing that, and one of the things is our company can help you understand what those laws are so that the collection agencies, if they're turned over to collection agencies, or the original creditors, cannot harass you. And they're very strict laws with tremendous amount of fines out there if somebody should go past the point.
Right, right. Now let's talk about this, because you said that like I said, I stumbled across it by accident. Right. You were on their side.
Yes.
What are some of the like I said, we can either do it yourself or you can use a company. Obviously, if you use a company, it's a lot less stressful. It's a lot easier. They know what they're doing. You don't have to worry about whether you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong, because it definitely is a game, like a chess game almost.
Absolutely.
You need to know what move to make, when to make it, and sometimes what verbiage to use, and that's, I guess, quite important.
That's correct. And part of it is relationships. It's having a relationship with these companies, understanding what it is they're really trying to get at, knowing the position that, in our case, our clients are in, what leverage we have versus what leverage they have. Mm-hmm. And so it's something that you get to know over many years of experience.
Right.
And
okay.
yes, and absolutely, it can be done yourself. There's no magic to it. It's a fairly complex process, but there's no magic to it.
Right. And I know from what we've shared over the time we've known each other is that each company is different in what they're willing to do and willing not to do, and the time frames and all that.
That's absolutely correct.
Right. But if you were to, help us, the viewers, understand that this is legal, correct? All of these processes.
Absolutely, the whole process is legal. The reason it's legal is because it is accepted by the creditor. The creditor is saying, "Okay, we will accept this negotiation. We understand this negotiation. We accept the offer." And then to make sure that you're getting what the creditor is saying, you get it in writing.
Right. Right. Okay.
So that's what our company does. When we negotiate a deal, we make sure that we get that deal saying this bill has been paid off and in writing.
Right. Okay. Now, when you negotiate, what are the percentage spreads? I know I've heard 50%, sometimes more, sometimes 75%. How do they vary? What are the?
Roger, it can be from zero, where some companies refuse to negotiate, and that's, I think, separates us from some of the other companies out there who tell you every single debt is going to be negotiated. It's not true.
Right.
But when the companies are willing to negotiate, they can negotiate from 25% off to 80% off, but the averages run about 50% off.
That's a big significant difference.
It's a significant savings.
Yeah.
And you're not accounting the interest that would accrue, and a lot of times we can have that, though the interest accrues, but when we negotiate, sometimes we don't negotiate off the interest. We'll just negotiate off the principal.
What the principal balance was,
right.
Which is really key, because you miss these windows of paying off your credit card, and it can go from 0 points or 5% interest to 32% interest,
exactly.
And now you're in a game you're not going to win.
And the savings is, when you really look at the savings, if you look at the savings on a principal basis, we're going to save you 50% However, if you look at the savings, if you were going to pay these balances off on a minimum basis, which most people who are in that debt is the most they can do, the savings can run into hundreds of thousands of dollars because the minimum payments interest keeps continuing to build and go on for 29, 30 years, sometimes, some people's lifetime.
Right, which is, I mean, that's what the problem is with houses and different things on their credit. So when you take this approach of negotiating and reducing your debt to, say, 50%, let's just say, what are the typical time frames? I mean, obviously, you can do it in as short as, probably 6 months or under, if I'm correct, and then oftentimes up to 2 to 3 years, as opposed to 30 years, right? But what are the typical, what are the differences?
The differences have to do with your resources, our clients' resources. So you can either take money and put it aside to bring up a fund where we then can go and negotiate. So if we reach that fund where it's, let's say, we have 25% of your debt, we can begin that negotiation process. So it depends on how much money you yourself want to put into that fund. If you have a lump sum, of course, and especially if the debt is fairly new, you can negotiate quite a bit right off the bat. Because when you turn around very quickly and say, hey, we have 25, 30%, many of the creditors are willing to take that money right off. Particularly, again, in a difficult financial position. But part of it also to do is where you are, what state you are, and what the laws are revolving around what state.
Okay. So you're saying, if I understand correctly, for the viewers, that the time frame to get out of debt could be as short as 6 months and up to 2 years.
Absolutely.
And that's usually as far as you go, is 2 years, or what?
Well, you can go further, but again, you lose a lot of the older a debt gets, the less leverage you have with the creditor.
Okay. All right. So then, obviously, it's in your best interest to, I mean, not even in the best interest, but emotionally, it's better to try to get this thing done within 6 months, get it out of the way, finish with it, walk away from it.
Absolutely. The faster you get it complete. And the other side of that we're missing is that the faster you get it done, the faster you can get your credit repaired. That's a big, that's a big plus. So you get it done quick, you get your credit repaired. You can get your credit repaired in a relatively short time.
Right. And what's interesting too about this is I used to have some mentors that were really wealthy, and they used to teach me that credit and credit scores really aren't that important when you're cash rich.
That's
because
correct.
I mean,
look at cash, it doesn't matter
sitting
what
here in a $2 million boat. I mean, if you got the money to shell out without a problem, thinking about it, credit history, and credit scores are really irrelevant. But what is nice to know is that the system has been legally set up so that you can remove debt and repair your credit really quickly, which we'll talk about on another show. We have a whole system now in place to literally repair your credit over 100 points in under 6 months.
That's correct.
So these are important steps, and this is what really it's all about. To restore your life to wholeness, you want to first stabilize yourself emotionally and realize that life isn't over just because you're in debt, that you can literally get out of debt quickly in 6 months. Can you go less than 6 months?
Absolutely. You can't. The rule is that a creditor will not even negotiate with you until you.
Is it missed the payment, 1 or 2 payments, or
you're in arrears
or default?
You defaulted.
Right.
You're in arrears or you defaulted.
Right.
Once you've done that, at that point, and that usually is 90 days. At that point, you can negotiate.
Okay, so you're saying at 90 days, 3 months is
Right.
at the point you can start the negotiation process.
Correct. It varies a little bit from client to client, but as an average, 3 months works.
Right. Now I understand too that there's a window here of 6 months to where within 3 months you've gone into default. At the point they start calling you and wanting us. Sometimes they start calling you the moment the payment doesn't come a week later. But you got 3 months, and then they've got another 3 months before it's the 6 month mark, which at that point they then send it off to, they write it off,
Right.
which is legal. I mean, they write off the debt
Right.
and send that to the IRS, and they get sometimes money back. They get to take it off their taxes. So really, it's in their best interest to write it off as a loss to them.
Right, and that's right. They do it. It's an accounting procedure. It's an expense that they take off their taxes. That's absolutely correct. And from that point, once they've written it off, what they're saying to you or to us out there is, it's done. We don't expect to collect it. So if you look at it from that mentality, and you understand that they have written it off,
Right.
how then anything they get is a plus from that point on.
Right.
Which is why you have some leverage.
exactly. And then if they do in turn send it off to one of these credit agencies, which they want to try to recoup somehow, so they send it off to these credit agencies. Sometimes they